Let's have a look at some examples using the special angles that we just covered in the previous video. The first question says simplify without a calculator. Now that without a calculator is actually code for use special angles. Sometimes they'll be given, but sometimes you have to get to that special angle. So let's have a look at this question. We've got negative sec of pi over 3 minus tan of pi over 4 times by cos of pi over 3. Okay, I've got my little table there to help me remember my special angles. So if we have a look at this question, go one trig ratio at a time. I've got negative, so I keep my negative. Sec of pi over 3. Now go back, sec is it's the reciprocal of cos. Cos is x over r. So this will be r over x, which in this case is 2 over 1. So I've got 2 over 1. Then I'm going to subtract tan of pi over 4. So I go to pi over 4, and I know that tan is y over x. So my y is root 2, my x is root 2. And remember in AP, it's always a good idea to write things out in full, at least in that first step. Then I'm going to multiply, I'm going to use brackets just to keep my order of operations correct. Cos of pi over 3, so I go to pi over 3. Cos is x over r. So it's 1 over 2. Okay, so let's do the arithmetic that's involved. This is negative 2. I'm going to keep over 1. Minus root 2 times 1. Well, root 2 over root 2 is 1, so it's just going to end up being 1 over 2. Get an LCD of 2. So I know this is quite basic, but I'm going to put it in times by 2 times by 2. So I've got negative 4 minus 1 over 2, which is negative 5 over 2, which you can write as a mixed number, but you don't have to. Okay, so you land up with your negative 5 over 2. That's one type of question that can use special angles. You can also be asked a special angles question using reductions. So let's go down to the second question here. And what I've done is I've just included the questions that we need to ask ourselves, which are covered in the reductions video. So I've got cos of negative 5 pi over 6. Now you might be asking yourself, where does negative 5 pi over 6 lie? Well, you can do a direct conversion to degrees. You can go negative 5 times 180 and you divide by 6. Or let's just have a look back at this original diagram that we looked at in the last video. Now I'm going to show negative 5 pi over 6. Let's do it in purple. It lies over here. One way you can know in which quadrant it lies, which is the most important thing for a reduction, is you say, okay, well, pi is 180. So if I've got 5 pi over 6, I know that it's smaller than a whole. 5 over 6, smaller than a whole, so it must be smaller than pi. But it's more than pi over 2. So it must lie in that second quadrant, which is the pi minus quadrant, or the 180 minus is what you're more used to. But I want you to still get a feel now for these radians. So it's the pi minus quadrant. So let's have a look how that plays out. Well, actually, before I can even get there, let's first just handle our negative angles. Because remember, we've learned that cos of a negative angle is positive cos of that angle. Okay, so we've learned that. So it's going to help us now. Cos of negative 5 pi over 6 is the same as positive cos of 5 pi over 6. Let's do our reduction. It lies in the second quadrant. So you're going to ask yourself questions. What quadrant does it lie in? It lies in the second quadrant, which is the pi minus quadrant. Is it positive or negative in that quadrant? Well, we'll get there in a moment. Is there a name change? No, because I'm dealing with pi minus. What is my acute angle? Well, let's see. Pi minus what is going to give me 5 pi over 6? Well, pi is the same as 6 pi over 6. What do I need to minus from 6 pi over 6 to get 5 pi over 6? The reason why I'm thinking in terms of 6 pi over 6 is because I want an LCD, just to gauge what I need to subtract. So I need to subtract pi over 6. Pi minus pi over 6 will give me my 5 pi over 6. Now let's just go back to the second quadrant. Is it positive or negative in that second quadrant? Well, cos is negative. So it's going to be negative cos of my acute angle, which is pi over 6. Let's go back to our table. Cos pi over 6. Cos is x over r, so it's root 3 over 2. So I've got negative root 3 over